favorite font, by the way, Maxwell. That's boom.
Yay!
Sometimes SPSM. I'm at Doc Foreman. This is hashtag SPSM chat. And sometimes I want to say, and this is a very special episode, and I feel like we're now on episode 3 for our 4th year. I feel like I want to say that now almost every week. I am really excited what we're going to have tonight. We have what? Ooh, there's a chicken because of David Covington, and it's just freaking me out. But back to the ranch. Hey everyone, welcome to Suicide Prevention Social Media Chat. I'm at Dr. Foreman. I'm one of your lovely moderators tonight. We have Hannah Moch from the American Foundation of Suicide Prevention, AFSP, who is their social media producer. I don't want to, what is it, chair, specialist. She'll give you a better title and do a better job with introductions than me. What I want for you guys to know is that this woman has managed to make this be an actual job for which she gets paid, not in chickens.
Nope.
We're going to be talking about Suicide Prevention Week and Suicide Prevention Day. We've sort of got a month, a week, a day, all this stuff, and she's going to be talking about suicide prevention media that is going to be happening with AFSP. Of note, I just want to make a couple of quick announcements, first of all. So a couple of things that you should notice. Upcoming this week on World Suicide Prevention Day, we will be, you will see me, you will see Tony, and some other SPSMers at a VA White House hackathon event that we're going to be hacking synthetic suicide data, about 3,000 cases of folks who died by suicide, or at least a synthesized data set based on that. Versus matched folks from the same healthcare system. I'm really excited. We're really going to be talking about how we can start moving the needle on preventing suicide. But more importantly, I'm really excited that Hannah is here today because we had some questions after our event last week. We had someone who I've known for years on social media who joined us last week. And right before the chat, she began to tell us that one of her friends had just lost someone to suicide. And of course, we're really sorry. This is terrible news. And she then said, what are the SPSM resources for survivors? And of course, I said, I can't believe you're asking this. In fact, this is what we have planned for next week. And as we're going into Suicide Prevention Month, we're going to be talking about what survivors can do to change the landscape in suicide prevention. Just want to make a couple quick introductions. First of all, I want to introduce Mr. Tony Wood. Tony, say hello.
Howdy, everybody. I'm Tony Wood at ADWWW, COO of Quantify and technical producer of SPSM, and we're here tonight thanks to Bart Andrews. Bart Andrews!
What? That's my introduction, April. What's going on? Have we changed the rules?
No, I'm just trying to make it move faster because she did 6 minutes of announcements, Bart. You see what you did? You threw it back to her.
First of all, I'm in the process of tweeting. How can I live tweet and do the show if you don't follow the format that we've agreed upon, which is that?
Sorry, Bart. Sorry.
You know, this is the level of professionalism that we've sunk to. And we're going to ratchet up a notch. First thing I'm going to do, I'm Bart Andrews. I'm the Vice President of Clinical Practice and Evaluation at an amazing crisis agency, Behavioral Health Response, in St. Louis, Missouri. We're actually going to be represented along with the amazing Jennifer Battle and John Draper on an AAS webinar this week. I don't know the exact date and time of that, but it's sometime this week, and people will tell me, and I'll show up. 2, I'm calling out Chris Maxwell for excessive use of the wet paint font on WordSwag. Chris Maxwell, listen to me, sir. Wet paint, put it down. Put down the wet paint font, Chris Maxwell. 3rd very quick announcement, there's an amazing interview with Jonathan Singer interviewing David Covington about zero suicide on the Social Work Podcast blog space, whatever that is. People have been tweeting it out. Covington's doing his rolling 47,000 tweets with that link in there, so just scroll back on the SPSM thread and you'll see it. Or if somebody who has maybe, like Chris Maxwell, if you put down the wet paint font, if you could tweet that out, then we'll be good. And we're excited to have Hannah here, and what's the next step in the show, April?
Hey Bart,
we're gonna talk a little bit about
just a second. I've heard a lot about
Yes.
this podcast, and I've not listened to the podcast, so as far as I know, it's just
Foreman didn't either.
It's just screaming obscenities for an hour.
I don't believe David cusses. Have you?
But
No, he does sometimes. No, he does.
I decided this week that SPSM is the Muppet Show of suicide prevention, and
just trying to spice it up a little bit.
I feel like that's accurate. So everyone, I'm really excited to introduce Hannah Moch. I'm going to get the name wrong, but Communications Coordinator is her proper title, which if I'd rehearsed better, I would have known. Hannah,
Hi.
introduce yourself.
Hi, guys. I'm Hannah. It's Moch, like mocha without the A. But that's
I thought it
okay.
was
Everybody
mock.
says it wrong, so no worries.
You sure it's not mock?
I'm positive.
All right.
Although
Just
if you ask my West Coast relatives, they may feel differently, but the East Coast Mochs say Moch. So I am the communications coordinator at the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. What that really means is I make their social media happen. So I'm really excited to be here. It's basically exactly what I do all day. So that's awesome. I'm really excited.
So Hannah, we're going to talk for just a minute about like what you do and why AFSP started getting involved in social media.
Sure.
But one of the questions that I actually asked during the show, during the show warm-up was like, you're using Thunderclap this week, you've done a bunch of neat stuff, and as a person who's always trying to get people to try neat stuff, I said, like, how do you get them to say yes to so many cool and effective ideas? And Hannah, talk a little bit about how you ended up being communications coordinator and how you get AFSP to say yes to social media.
Sure. Yeah, so one of the big things is that I've built up trust over the last 3 years that I've been working at AFSP. When we've tried like baby steps of new things, that's worked really well, and so then I get to try like kind of bigger steps of new things. So that's like a big part of it, is just starting small and getting bigger. But we also, I also have the advantage of saying to people, hey, I'm young. I know these things because I was born into this world of social and digital media. And so I have that advantage of being able to just kind of use my youngness as somehow a professional advantage, which is rare, I think. So it makes me kind of, more of an expert, I think. People think that I know things about social media because I'm 23. And I also spend a lot of time explaining things to people, which sounds silly, but like it really does work. If you sit down with someone and you show them how a Twitter chat works, that makes them more comfortable. If you promise that you will be there with them during the Twitter chat or during a Google Hangout or whatever it is, it will kind of calm their fears a little bit and help, I think.
So you have a bunch of stuff planned with AFSP, but AFSP a couple of years ago really decided they were going to commit to PR communications, and that part of that was going to be a social media strategy. So how does social media fit with the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention sort of mission and plan?
Sure. I think one of the biggest ways is that because AFSP is a national organization, we have chapters in all 50 states, we have staff members all across the country too. Social media is pretty critical because we're so spread out and we're not, one place in an office. There's a mosquito. One place in an office all together. And so that's like a big part of it. It fits into AFSP's mission and plan because we are so spread out. But the other thing is that AFSP's literal mission is to save lives and bring hope to those affected by suicide. And those affected by suicide, that term covers anyone who's ever been touched by suicide in any way. And it means that we cover a lot of ground for a lot of people all over the place. And social media, as I'm sure you guys, since you are all not together in the same place, I'm coming from New York, you guys are coming from all sorts of parts of the country, and social media is what's bringing you together. So that's like a big deal for AFSP. I think the other thing was AFSP has kind of gone through a lot of changes in the last couple of years, and they realized that one of the ways that organizations, keep going and keep themselves going is by updating and doing new things. And so that focus on social media, and also the kind of like not using PR thing is keeping suicide in the shadows, which is exactly what AFSP and other organizations like it don't want to do. So you need PR, you need to be putting out press releases, you need to be tweeting on, say, trending hashtags that don't look like they have anything to do with suicide, but could potentially if you make it. So those are the kinds of things that that really have helped in getting AFSP to take social media more seriously.
And you talked about, like, you really entered the world of suicide prevention like in a traditional way on one of the night walks, right? One of the Out of Darkness, correct?
Yeah.
And you really, like, I mean, when we think about that bridge from sort of the traditional model of what AFSP was doing to sort of bridging over into really embracing new media and social media, like, you were one of those persons who was with AFSP before then, right?
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about your personal story and talk about how this all started.
Sure. So I was 13 when I lost a friend to suicide. She was also 13. Her name was Malaya. We were 8th graders in a middle school in New York City, and that was kind of my first interaction with the way the world reacts to suicide and suicide loss. Because we had kind of one day and 1 week where we talked a lot about Malaya at school and all of these things, and then our teachers shut down, and they didn't want to talk about her. They denied us having any mention of her at graduation, which was only a couple months later. Because so we took the mic and we demanded a moment of silence, and we copied a poem that someone had wanted to put in the yearbook and passed it out at graduation to like parents and things. Because it had been rejected from the yearbook for the same reason. And I've realized since then that our teachers were terrified completely out of their minds. Because
now, how old were you?
13.
Okay.
We were 13.
Just keep going with your wise self.
Yeah. But then I was frustrated. It created this relationship between us that was really combative and shouldn't have been, because we should have been all there for each other together, right? And this is getting a little away from social media, but it comes back to it. And so what I've realized as I've grown up and gotten into suicide prevention is that we don't educate our teachers about suicide prevention at all, and about what to do when the worst happens either. And so they just kind of panicked and shut it all down. So that kind of framed my reality about suicide and the way the world reacts to suicide. But because I am a very get into it and do it sort of person, the very next year, AFSP brought their overnight walk to New York City for the first time. And so I was 14 by then, and I did it with another friend who was 14 and our parents. And it's an 18-mile walk through the night. It's quite intense, but it was amazing. And that was kind of the start for me for what I wanted to do with this grief and this reality that had taken place for us. And so I did it a couple years after that. And then because I knew the organization so well and I really believed in the organization and I loved the walk, I thought originally I would just work for the walks. I didn't really understand how all of that worked. I had done some nonprofit work with GLAAD and the Gay, Lesbian, Straight Education Network and things like that. And so I reached out to AFSP and they happened to need a communications intern, and that happened to be what I was studying in college. And so it kind of all worked out. And then they had a need for someone to do this new thing, social media, for them. And there I was, just sitting there in a cube, being an intern. And so they said, hey, do you want to maybe start working for us when you graduate college, but also before? And I said, sure, I will work part-time until I graduate and then full-time after that. And now it's been 2 years since I graduated, so 3 years since I've been working there almost. That was a lot.
So can we just talk for a minute about the presence that you must have had at 13? And I get that, and I'm gonna sound old lady, and we're just gonna have to deal with that because I am. But
it's okay.
That is a very to be 13 and be clear about what was happening, to be clear about what was needed, to be clear that the adults did not know and couldn't do it. And to find a way to I mean, I think you said a very get into it and do it kind of person, and that's just who you are.
Yeah.
Naturally. And then for you to sort of say, I'm going to drive new media and suicide prevention. I mean,
yeah.
That takes a level of self-presence that we just have to stop and have a minute. I don't know how you felt about that, Bart, You know, it's not okay that it's left to the 13-year-olds to know what to do with themselves.
I think it.
No, go ahead.
Go, Hannah. Hannah, go.
I was just going to say, it was very early. Like, I honestly didn't get a Facebook until 2009, which was the start of my senior year. But what we did have then, when Malaya died, was AIM chat, was AOL chat. And oh boy, did we use it that night after she died. I still have the document. There's pages and pages of us promising to be nicer to each other, but also kind of tiptoeing around saying like, oh, so she really died by suicide, except we didn't say it in so much language, and oh, how did it happen, and how did you find out, and is everyone okay? And it was just basically my whole graduating class came together in this AIM chat, which had never happened before, to talk about this with no parental supervision, as far as I know, because we were just on AIM chat. Yeah.
Bart, comment on this, because
Well, I love it. So I love this because it's powerful to me, because youth understand things that adults have been conditioned around suicide in a way that we don't talk about it, we don't share it. So they're steeped in the prejudice and the discrimination and the fear, where youth are not. And so here you see this really organic thing happening, where these young folks have not been poisoned by the message of we don't talk about suicide, and they organically connect with each other. And they have these amazing conversations, right?
Yeah.
It's one of the reasons that the whole the whole safe messaging. Okay, safe messaging, great. But people need to be talking about this. And whenever we try to, I think schools are so concerned about contagion, and that's been drilled into their heads 8 million times that they're left with this paralysis. And I think reading your blog, Hannah, that was the sense I got. The school was basically paralyzed by this, didn't know what to do. And for those of you who don't know, the amazing Jonathan Singer actually wrote a book about this, Suicide in Schools, that addresses this very issue, including social media and including how schools should respond, and the way that your school responded falls somewhere on the really sucky end of probably how they should, in a non-judgmental, non-sucky kind of a way. But because I think a lot of people think sucky is very judgmental, and it's not. It's with love.
Yeah.
It's with love and kindness that I say that.
Yeah.
So one of the things that Hannah... Why are you Foreman? I don't understand. It's
not judgmental. It's with love. Just keep going.
So you know what's really interesting, and Hannah has hit on this point, and her story about when she was 13 at this point. So Ursula Whiteside did a blog, and if you didn't see her blog out on Facebook, The Making of a Monster, one of the quotes in there, and Heather Williams and Rick Straight commented on this on Facebook, about you need to find your clan. Right? And one of the things that social media really does really well is there's lots of us out there, but it's hard for us to connect with one another in one location. It's really hard to do, but in social media, we kind of find our clan.
There are fireworks happening.
And that's how good I am. That's how good I am. When I come up with these gems, people all over the country start setting off fireworks.
Yeah.
I'm mortified.
I appreciate that wherever Hannah is, they take Labor Day that seriously.
Really?
Is Labor Day a fireworks?
Go Labor! They're pro-Labor. That's
what
like,
time?
You
Is
don't
it
see
like
that
what?
much.
Do they do fireworks on Labor Day? Is that
They do where Hannah is.
Can you tell us a little bit about what AFSP has for this year? Because you guys have been doing stuff, but this year AFSP has kind of kicked it up a notch.
Yeah. Yes, we are. So we made a whole web page for it. Kudos to our senior digital communications manager, Jonathan, because he made the whole website. It's beautiful. It's at afsp.org/nspw. Although by tomorrow it will be our homepage. So if you go to afsp.org, you'll see it anyway. And if you click on that, it'll show you what you can do during National Suicide Prevention Week, what AFSP is doing, which focuses mostly on our Project 2025, and then a section of blogs, which are basically just stories called Raising Our Voices to Stop Suicide. And so within the What You Can Do section are things like shareable graphics that have facts about suicide and other messages about mental health. You can do your own selfie to stop suicide, which is basically just posting a selfie with the hashtag stop suicide. You can participate in Till 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time tomorrow, you can sign up for our Thunderclap, which will automatically post our NSPW message to your page. I'm hoping it will reach far and wide.
Now, how do we sign up for the? Okay.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm old. Talk me through Thunderclap.
All right. If you go to that homepage that I was talking to you about, you could probably also go to Thunderclap and search, but let's bring it to AFSP. If you go to afsp.org/NSPW, and then you click what?
afsp.org/NSPW. NSPW?
Yeah, like National Suicide Prevention
Week.
Sorry, Tony, what?
I already tweeted out the link for the folks at home.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So then how because we want everyone to do Thunderclap starting tomorrow, right?
Yeah. Well, we want them to do it now because it'll go out tomorrow.
Absolutely. And can I just tell you, great video. So like the video on this, because I was prepping this week, and I watched it several times. It's really good. Anyway, so when you go there, there's a little video. Please do go to the YouTube, share that video. But also then, what do we do?
So then you can click what can you do to stop suicide.
Woo!
And there are so many things you can do.
Join the Thunderclap.
Yeah. Click join the Thunderclap. And then you can sign up via Facebook profile, but not page. So if you manage an organization's page, for example, you can't sign up with that. But you can sign up with your personal profile. And then you can sign up with any Twitter account and with a Tumblr if you happen to use Tumblr.
This is so easy.
It's so easy, I know. I'm hoping it is also effective. This is what we're going to find out tomorrow.
So now I'm signing up with Facebook. I'm signing up with Twitter. Look at this.
Yeah.
So, and I can add a little extra. I can put the SPSM tag on that so we can find it several different ways.
Yeah.
And I tweeted out the link directly to the Thunderclap for everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Tony.
So they don't have to shop around for it.
I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
But let's do a little proof of concept on this one, okay, kids? So Hannah, you talked about that you just sort of talk people through things.
Yeah.
You just did it.
I did. Not as in-depth.
No, it was really easy, and Hannah was right there, and that really helped. So for some of us folks, there may be some hand-holding as the organization is making the transition, but that took less than, 45 seconds, I think, when I was timing, for me to get from the beginning of the explanation to this could really work. And then I get to watch it work with my own accounts, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so tell us more about what's coming.
Sure. So then the other things we're doing include we're encouraging people, obviously, to sign up for, I apologize for the fireworks. I don't know what to do about that.
We don't apologize.
You don't apologize for being pro-labor on Labor Day.
Explosive.
So we are also encouraging people to register for our Out of the Darkness walks, which are happening all across the country. There are hundreds of them, so that's pretty awesome. And then we also have this nifty little profile filter where that cool lady is holding up the deuces, and it says, "We can #StopSuicide." And if you go there, Twibbin is slightly less user-friendly than Thunderclap. But if you go there, you can
answer on that one.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
You can go there and add our little "We Can Stop Suicide" tag to your profile picture on Facebook or Twitter, or you can download it for other social media. Yeah.
And what is it going to take for Facebook to make it easy, just for national? This is Facebook. Why you need to call up Hannah?
Yeah.
Add nice filters to my Facebook profile during World Suicide Prevention Day or during National Suicide Prevention Week, because Twibbin is a little bit more work than I can manage.
I agree. So it seems like Facebook is actually starting to roll out ways that you can do it within Facebook, but they're working with specific organizations. And for some reason they didn't come to AFSP, but GLAD had one after the tragedy in Orlando and that kind of thing. So they are starting. So I think we are going to see ways for organizations.
Facebook, AFSP has a Hannah.
Exactly.
Anna, and get us a filter. We need it. 43,000 Americans died. That's a few more than many other tragedies. Surely we can get a Facebook filter out of it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm hoping it's coming. But for now, we have Twibbin. And it just takes a bit more time.
It does, and I have to say I struggle with it more just because old. I struggle with it more because old. But like there are folks that like the Facebook filters, like once people put those on, often we'll leave them up for months. Like
forever. So
I'm hoping.
Yeah.
Tell your boss you need to go visit Facebook.
I will. I'll let her know.
Norman, don't get her fired. Don't get her fired. So how long did it take for you to come up with this media strategy? So, I mean, because you've been working on this for a little while, because I met you. We were in a meeting on folks with lived experience, and you were sort of sitting in the back, and I did not know who you were when you were with. You were just you were just adorable. I can't help it. You have a certain spirit I find very attractive, and you were just like whatever. And then Tony's like, "That's Hannah with AFSP." I'm like, "What? That's Hannah with AFSP." And you already were like starting to think things through. Like we'd started talking. I mean, I know you've been working on this for months.
Yeah. So that was back in April, right at the conference. And that was the very beginning, because what we had between then and now is also our big overnight walks, which take a lot of social media-ing. And so a lot of my time was spent on that until the end of June. So this has really all come together quite quickly over the summer, but the concepts have been rolling around in our heads really since last National Suicide Prevention Week.
Wow.
Yeah, because
what do you do with social media for the walks? Like, what is the time-consuming bit about that?
Well, it's a lot of just promotion on social media, which a lot of that is like ads that I don't really need to do much with, and then posting. But the other thing that happens is I have to go to those walks, and I have to post content from them. And as I mentioned, the walks are overnight. They're long. I get there basically at 1 in the afternoon, and we finish around 5 a.m. And it's a lot of, and I'm social mediaing the whole time. That's the only reason they send me to these things.
You're hiking and creating?
No, I don't have to walk it anymore. That's the one thing that I have gotten out of being a staff.
I was about ready to saint you.
Yeah, no, I don't have to walk it anymore, but I do have to be there the whole time, right?
Right.
But luckily, yeah, no, we have a staff van. Thank goodness. And it's a lot of, because the walk is actually quite visual, even though it's at night, it's a lot of Instagram. And this year we introduced Snapchat, which AFSP hadn't used before. But it was great for that kind of event because it's live. We actually made Snapchat filters that were geo filters. They were located at the opening and closing ceremonies. Yeah.
That's cool.
That's witchcraft.
I know. It was like crawling to running.
This is a thing that you can do, filters that are only available if you're there?
Yeah. And they're not even that expensive. It was amazing.
Can I ask how much that costs?
Well, like for a time, there's a certain space amount, and then it's $5 up to a certain amount, and then it gets bigger from there. But we had Midnight Snack in New York in a park, and for just like the area of the park, it was $5.
So okay, so hold on.
Yeah. So
I'm going to tell you. So in Louisiana during Mardi Gras, people throw beads, and every parade has its own swag, right? So people pay a lot. So if you ever go to Louisiana and go to parade, and you're like, oh, look at this free parade, know that ordinary citizens just order this, right? And they pay for it with the parade medallions and cups with the insignia and coins and things like that. People spend thousands of dollars on this. And you're telling me you can make a customized Snapchat filter for a geolocated range, $5.
Yeah.
And people be like, I was totally here, and other people can't have it unless they were there.
Yeah, in the location, but anyone in the location can have it.
That's so fun.
Yeah, and Snapchat actually just made it easier because we designed them and all that, so you had to know how to design things. Now they've made it even easier. You can customize them kind of through Snapchat. And so especially people are make them for birthday parties and things like that. It's pretty cool. So we had one that said just overnight walk to stop suicide. Then we had one that was I'm halfway done with the overnight walk. And then one that said I finished the overnight walk, which was very popular because that's a big deal to finish it. I will say before you get very excited, they do not allow hashtags on the filters. It's like a thing. It's like a hang-up for them. I don't know why.
Listen, like for that kind of fun,
Yeah.
we can just put SPSM, but like we could do that for like the AS conference, for example.
Yeah.
Like, I made it to the last session.
Yeah, exactly.
Because by the time you're to the last session, you've been up late hanging with all of your peeps. I know I've said peeps, and I'm not supposed to say peeps. I know peeps is 20 years old, but you've been hanging with your folks. You're doing whatever. Like, dude, I made it to the conference. Like, you could have lived experience. You could do all sorts of cool stuff during the conference.
Yes. And the prices change a little bit based on how popular. Like our opening and closing in New York was at the Intrepid, and so that was pricier than at this park that we had it in San Francisco. The Intrepid is like a big air and space museum, for those who don't know. It's on a big warship, and so it's a very popular tourist destination. So that was actually pricier. Snapchat knows kind of where.
Let's pretend I have not said this earlier today, but what will $100 buy me?
It will buy you quite a lot, I think. It will depend on where you are in the area and all that. But it's really cool. It was fun.
I am not good at Snapchat, but I might get good at Snapchat for geolocated, event-specific filters. I might swag more than I care to admit. That's really cool.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was a really good
Did people use it?
They did, yeah. I mean, I think as we move forward, we'll get more people using them. But I think, yeah, a lot of people did use them. It was cool.
Bart, I saw you reacting a few times.
Well, there's so much goodness. My favorite so far, so I got to say, By Cheney's Hands came up with the idea of at these walks having a golf cart that you'd be in with cameras on all sides. I love that idea, by the way. They've always got the best ideas at By Cheney's Hands. So there's several things. One, the website is just beautiful. So I have questions about who's doing all this design. The other thing that I hope that there's other letter groups, the letter people in suicide prevention that are paying attention, because being able to go into some links and click on a link and say, hey, I want to post this on Facebook and it's ready to roll. I want to post this on Twitter and it's ready to roll. As soon as you said that, we had about a bunch of SPSMers just got on and started blasting stuff out, and they joined the thunderclap.
Yeah.
That's very, very, very cool. So I think. So, did Tony? Did I interrupt April while she was talking? Tony, did I interrupt?
No.
Did I interrupt her at all?
Minutes.
Did I? We talked about this, Tony. I just want a record. We talked about this before the show.
Yeah.
And
we set a boundary.
The counselor said that she wasn't going to do this anymore. Do you remember that?
Yeah, he did.
Bart, I promise I'll bounce.
No, it's okay.
I'm
so disempowered at this point. I don't even know where to start.
No, I know.
So let me go on. Let me continue.
Everyone.
Let me continue. So I think one of the things that you guys have hit on, there are so many people that start on social media and they try to but they don't know what to tweet and they're afraid of tweeting things, right? Mm-hmm. But if you can get people started with this sort of thing where they just click on a couple of things and this to start off with very safe, very honest message goes out that's got credentials behind it like AFSP, then people will do it and they'll do it quickly. And if we get them doing little things, then they'll do more things and they'll do more things. And I think that's just really savvy. Now, how do you guys come up with the web page designs? Who's doing all that? Because the web page is beautiful. Yeah. It's easy to use. It draws the eye, but it's not too busy. And there's really clear. And those of you who have web pages out there, please look at their web page. There's very clear things that you can click on, and they do the things that they say that they'll do for you. I know that that's hard, but tell us how you guys come up with that. Who does that? Do you do that? What's the deal?
It is Mr. Jonathan Dozier-Ezell. He is our senior digital communications manager, and he's a genius. And we actually launched a new website in January. So if anyone has been around long enough to remember the old AFSP website, this is quite clean and much nicer and much kind of more intuitive, I would say. So the whole website, right, was relaunched. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
I will tell you, I 100% agree. And I'm not gonna use the word sucky and no judgment because that would be confusing. But like when I was going through it, you know, in prep for the show, and I've been to AFSP's website many times. I go get resources, I go look for other stuff, and I thought this is really smooth, and the video is very good, like all of those things.
Yeah, yeah. So that's pretty much all Jonathan. And the NSPW website was kind of his vision. You know, the projects within it, the things within it, are the whole team, our whole communications team. But Jonathan is the mastermind behind the tech of it. He and Tony should definitely have some conversations, I think.
You know, what's really impressing me. Oh, Tony, did you want to comment?
No. Go ahead. You've got 70 more minutes. It's fine.
So
Tony,
what she's is the really clear communication, with their behavior and where they're sort of funding things and where they're putting time. The AFSP is doing, which is they're saying that digital media is a skill, social media is a skill. It's a skill you have to hire for. I think I just read something where someone was complaining that
You mean it's not free?
Right. that paying $25,000 a year for someone to do the tweets for a government job, for a government office, was too much. And I was like, it's just 140 characters a day. And I'm like, I don't think you understand what goes into it, right?
Yeah, I get a lot of that, like, oh, your job, you must be just relaxing, your job must be easy. And it's like, no. Like, not only is social media hard, but, like, social media for suicide is, like, a whole other thing. So
some of the things that you realized or learned doing this in a couple of years, because you're one of the few people who has a paid job doing this.
Yeah, I think the main thing is that people who have been affected by suicide want to hear their stories told. And that's not necessarily to say that they personally need to tell their story, but they want to hear stories that are like theirs told, and they want to read stories that are like theirs, because this subject and this issue is so isolating that when we can bring someone so one of the things that we've done the last 2 years is on Mother's Day and Father's Day, we've had blog posts by people who either lost their mother or father, or are a mother or father who lost a child. And those have been incredibly impactful because they comment and they say things like, I was planning on not looking at Facebook today because it's too hard, everyone's enjoying their time. And then I saw this story. And so things like that are like really, that's when I know I'm doing my job well. Like, it has nothing to do with analytics and numbers. It's when I know that people who've been affected by suicide are feeling like they are not alone anymore. And that's really important. So that's a really cool thing for me to see.
Gorgeous media on Mother's Day. I did read through the Mother's Day stories on Mother's Day in preparation for SPSM, actually. And
right, because you guys had that discussion,
yeah, and we were talking about survivors, and what is getting in the way of us facilitating survivors and people affected telling their stories?
I think part of it is they don't know where to go to tell their stories. We get a lot of comments where people say, like, hey, how can I write my story for AFSP? How do I tell my story? I think part of it is that people, because of all the negative things that are associated with suicide, people are a little afraid to tell their stories. And then I think also people are afraid they're not going to tell their stories correctly. And that gets a little hairy because on the one hand, like, all right, safe messaging, but on the other hand, like, just tell your story, and then we can kind of work out, if we need to, how we might change your language a little bit or take out X, Y, or Z. But for the most part, it's I think people are just a little nervous about talking about this kind of issue.
If we had so many people telling their stories about surviving suicide or being affected by suicide, that we had to start really worrying about manners. And we had so many to pick and choose from. I might have a different commentary right here, but the truth is, if you telling your story however you tell it is way more likely to contribute than to create a problem.
Yeah, I agree completely. I think that's the important thing to remember. And I also think people feel like they're going to tell their stories and everyone is going to be like, that's weird. Like, I've never experienced that. And really what happens is all of the time, every single story we've ever posted, people say, me too. And that's what it's all about, right? Like, is people saying, like, oh my God, I thought I was alone in this, and me too, I've had these exact same thoughts, and that can be both suicide loss and people with lived experience.
To lose someone you love and then to feel alone in how it happened.
Yeah.
Sounds
totally.
horrible.
Yeah.
Bart, what are some of your thoughts? We just covered a lot of ground there.
Well, I think there's so much wisdom there, and I think that one of the things that's so powerful is people telling their story and people hearing people's stories told, and that if everybody got up and told their story, we wouldn't have the suicide problem that we have right now, right? In the end, a big chunk of intervention is getting people to tell their story. Right? So there's lots of layers here. So when we talk about suicide awareness, when we talk about attempt survivors and suicide loss survivors telling their story, there's so much power in it that, yes, part of it's awareness, but part of it's really quite healing, and it also leads to more interventions. When people can get up and hear their story, I see this whenever Kevin Hines speaks, people talk about how they were feeling that way, and hearing someone else say it made them feel better, that they weren't alone in that. Looking at Desiree L. Stage's Live Through This website, when people see that other people have been through this, that I'm not alone in this. And we talked about this last week with the music thing. A huge chunk of what we need to do culturally is that folks, when they're in that suicide crisis, they are feeling all by themselves. They're not feeling connected, and we've put so many barriers socially in that make it hard for people to tell their story or to reach out and say, this is what's going on with me, that when other people tell their story, each person that tells their story, that barrier lowers just a little bit and a little bit more, right? And I always have this fantasy that all of us that have had suicide in our lives at one point will just all get up and start screaming to the hills about this. And that's why I tell my story as much as possible, because the more of us that are talking about it, the more people out there who aren't talking about it are going to talk about it, and I think that's powerful.
I'm going to ask you a question that was posed, or no, I take it back. I'm going to repeat a question I said, and then something someone else says. I'm going to direct a question to you. Too much explanation. Grace Urban says, "What is in answer to my question? What is standing in the way of survivors telling your stories?" She says, "Questions that matter." What do you think about that, Hannah?
I think that's very profound. I think that that's, I have to think about that. I think one of the things that that brings up for me is the way I get people to write their blogs, because sometimes people come to us and they want to tell their stories and all that. Other times we have volunteers who have been working with us for doing one thing or another, walks or whatever it is, and I go to them and I say, hey, I want you to tell your story in this forum. And so usually it's very basic questions, although this time for National Suicide Prevention Week we framed it with, how do you raise your voice to stop suicide? And we kind of let them tell their, and I made sure I included tell us your story, tell us how you're involved, that kind of thing. But for the most part, it's how do you raise your voice to stop suicide? And so one of the examples is that somebody started a drag show called Suicide is a Drag. It's really cool.
Please live stream that.
It's awesome. It's one of the AFSP chapter events. So
how do you get such wonderful things approved? That sounds like total AAS After Dark show appropriate. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, no, so I think this is kind of a roundabout way, but my kind of point is that it's important to think about the way that you get people to tell their stories. Sometimes people are going to come to you, and that's great. Those people, even if they don't realize it, are already empowered in a certain way. But if you are going to people who haven't quite told their story in this way yet, you have to come at them with the right questions, and that's really important. And it's always the kind of thing where people will say oh, you don't have to answer this if you're not comfortable. But the people who are there to tell their stories are comfortable answering a lot. There might be a few things they don't want to talk about, but they're really comfortable answering a lot of things, and we don't really have to handle them with kid gloves, I would say.
Yeah. In the therapy word that I like, that we use a lot is fragile. People just aren't as fragile as you think they are. People are more fragile and less fragile than you think they are. It's sort of a weird thing, but true.
Yeah.
So,
yes.
Tell me some things that you do to help really pull people's stories out in a really powerful way for your social media.
I think one of the big things is that because it's social media, I need them to be able to tell their stories in short form, and that has become quite a big thing because before Instagram changed its settings, you could only have a 15-second video, let's say there. And so if we wanted to do a video, we needed them to tell their story quickly, but in an impactful way. And the same is now true when we use Snapchat. I recorded people at the overnight walk saying why they were walking, but I said to them, you only have 10 seconds. And that takes people by surprise. And because, for example, this show is much longer than 10 seconds, this subject requires more time than that. But because it's social media and it's certain forms of social media, our blog is a little bit different. But on certain forms of social media, I need to ask people to tell their stories profoundly but quickly, and in depth but quickly. And that's always complicated and a little tricky. But when you get down to it, people can say the things that are most meaningful in that brief space.
Wow. Can we do that challenge, Bart? Can we each try to take it to tell our story for Suicide Prevention Week in 10 seconds?
Why not? Let's do it.
Tony, I see Tony the mic, and Tony, are you in? We don't know if Tony's in. We'll see.
In 10 seconds.
In 10 seconds.
Tony's in.
I'm at Doc Foreman.
I think suicide's a really bad idea. I think that's one, maybe two.
Yeah.
I need 10 seconds. I'm at Doc Foreman, and I heard somebody say their last words because of suicide, and I want to unmake that moment for everyone else in the world I possibly can.
That's pretty damn good. Well, shoot, put me on the spot, Foreman. My name is Dr. Bart Andrews. I tried to kill myself. I am really glad that I'm alive, and every day I get up hoping that I can make a difference in somebody else's life so they don't have to go through what I went through.
Tony?
I did mine.
Do it again.
Suicide is a really bad idea.
Damn it, can you do it?
Stop it.
My name is Hannah Moch, and when I was 13, I lost someone to suicide, so I don't want that to happen to anyone else, and that's why I do what I do.
Nice.
But that was a very, so this is, I think about those writing prompts on Reddit where they come up with a 1 or 2 sentence prompt with the idea that structure and limits often improve creativity and outcomes. And so what you're saying is you sort of give people the sort of what the fence is and let people sort of run around the space and see what happens.
We used to, so when I went to camp, sometimes we'd have to do our 6-word stories.
Yes.
So I was I remember once I was probably just heading into my senior year of high school, so it felt like my parents were involved in every aspect of my life and whatever. And so my 6-word story, I think, was "My 2 moms run my life," and that told a lot about me at that time. I have 2 moms. I felt like they were running my life in that moment, and that kind of stuff. And so I think if you give people those kinds of parameters, they can come through and tell really profound stories in ways that people can consume them, because that's really what social media is all about, is creating consumable messages.
The whole 10-second. At first I was like, okay, no more guests on crack on the show, Foreman. We've had the conversation, right? That's just not cool. And then I was like, you know what? You're so right, because it made me think about what I would say with that little bit of time, and you could do a bunch of different versions of that. Like now, after doing that version, it's like, oh, I could do that different in 10 seconds, and I could tell a different piece of it, and that's friggin' brilliant. And I'm going to tell you right now, if somebody sends me a link and says, watch this, and I click on it, and I see that it's more than 3 or 4 minutes, I'm like, you've lost your mind. Yeah. My attention span is right around 2.5 minutes, and that's it. I can give you 2.5, maybe 2. No, 2.5 if I'm but 10 seconds, people will pay attention to that. And it gets in, so where's Atos at? Atos sent me this really cool, Amelia Leto, who's the division chair, the crisis division chair for the American Association of Suicidology, a delightful agency that has amazing folks like Amelia. And Tony. And all kinds of good folks. And so about the history of the GIF, right? And the reason that GIFs are effective is that they play continuously and they're short, right? You don't have to press a button, because if you got to press a button, people won't pay attention. You give somebody a 10-second clip, they're going to look at it, right? They're going to listen to it. And it forces people to think about what they're going to say. So I love that. I think we should all do it.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
We're buttering you up.
I appreciate that. I love it. I love it.
What do you have planned? I mean, we know what the next week and month are going to bring. And by the way, this was just something that, SPSM scheduled with Hannah months ago, and the truth is that many people have suicide prevention messaging that's on social media, many organizations that we didn't, I started scheduling, obviously, for September back in April. Yeah. And there are several organizations doing stuff this month. And many of us who are watching are producing messaging this month, or part of something. But Hannah, you've got messaging that's going on past this month, right? You have a plan. What can you share with us about what's coming?
Well, so we've just launched this Project 2025. I do want to say we have been working with other fabulous organizations in this space, and we will be sharing their content, and they will be sharing ours. And I think that's one of the cool things about suicide prevention, is because we, especially in terms of the social media aspect of it, we are not in competition with each other. We are all trying to share each other's content. I can't speak for like the political aspect of all of this, but I know in terms of the social media side, we are all working together, and that's really cool. Anyway, because a lot of my fellow social media people are doing a lot of great things, and I am just the one here tonight.
But you're the one here tonight.
Yes, I am. So. We just launched Project 2025, which is our effort to reduce the suicide rate 20% by the year 2025. It's a huge undertaking. It's a bold goal. But we've just launched the 3 kind of focus areas of it, which are firearms and suicide prevention, emergency departments, and large healthcare systems. And so my biggest challenge right now is figuring out ways to make those things consumable on social media, and because the whole Project 2025 thing, that was easy. Getting people to care about 20x2025, hashtag 20x2025, or hashtag Project 2025, easy. Because people can get like, rah, rah, 20% by 2025, 20% in 10 years. Everyone loves that. But how to talk about something as complicated as firearms and suicide prevention, or as large healthcare systems and suicide prevention, or as emergency departments and suicide prevention is kind of my big challenge coming up.
Oh, there's all the healthcare social media people and the public sort of social media people, right?
Yeah.
There have been people sort of thinking this through for a few years now.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So here, like, and of course, I came to social media before I came to suicide prevention, just as healthcare and public health messaging and suicide prevention was sort of, and social media was sort of starting to happen, and it was like nobody knew if it was a legitimate thing or not.
Right.
But I mean, now it's sort of a discipline, and there are people like you and other healthcare organizations that get paid to do it. Are there partnerships in the healthcare system or in the public health space that might be helpful?
Yeah, I think suicide prevention people in large healthcare systems and in hospital settings as well are going to become like my best friends over the next period of time. I think we're going to have to work together a lot. Even, I think in some ways, like, because AFSP cannot do this alone, we're going to have to partner with a lot of people and a lot of organizations and companies and things like that. Like, for the firearms and suicide prevention, we launched a partnership with the National Shooting Sports Foundation and that kind of thing. Yeah. And those kinds of partnerships and those, and those people.
So I'm gonna interrupt here because that you have that on your website, right? About the sporting. So Sean Erriger and some other folks and I were involved in a very intense conversation with some of the folks that are very pro-gun rights, and they get a little concerned anytime we start talking about guns and suicide prevention.
Right.
And the one thing that they like, the one thing that they actually checked a like on a tweet was that specific link from AFSP that you were just talking about. That was the one thing they're like, hey, that's kind of cool, which is a big deal. Even though they were pretty worked up, That's one thing they were like. They didn't say, "Oh, that's." They were like, "Oh, that's kind of cool," which is huge that they were paying attention, and we had something that we could share with them that they actually grooved on, which was like, wow. So kudos to you guys and kudos to Sean for tweeting that out because we weren't making a lot of traction before that.
I'm so glad to hear that. That's really what it's all about. It's about suicide prevention, because suicide touches everyone in some way or another, has so many differing opinions in other spaces, whether it's firearms or LGBT things or whatever it is. And so so this partnership is really an effort to bridge those kinds of gaps where they may be. And I think I'm so glad to hear that, because I do think this partnership is going to make leaps and bounds in terms of that issue, because it's a big issue for suicide prevention. But yeah, so those kinds of partnerships are going to be kind of like my biggest thing coming up.
When you were growing up, did your mom say, "I hope that you grow up and at dinner parties talk about suicide and gun rights"?
Well, it's funny because my mother is an elder abuse social worker, so she doesn't talk about more exciting things either. We once had someone be like, oh, what do you guys do, to both me and my mom, like, at something, and it was like, suicide prevention, elder abuse, and it's like, oh, okay, yeah.
It's sunny outside, and I like the temperature.
Yeah, exactly.
How about those Red Sox?
Right, except we're in New York.
Where we get to the last couple
Yankees.
of the hour's almost over. I don't know if you noticed.
Oh, my.
I was like, are we going to get to all the points? The issue was that several good things happened. So this is this part where we do final thoughts, and so Dr. Foreman, and it is time for final thoughts. My final thought is that the suggestion that if you're an SPSMer, do two things. Number one, go check out Thunderclap on the AFSP website. We've tweeted out the links, but basically go to the AFSP website. It's for National Suicide Prevention Week. When you click the line that says, what can you do, there'll be all sorts of stuff. That Thunderclap business is cool shiznit. Go do it. The second thing is, if you can do a 10-second video, if you can do a Vine, which is 6 seconds, about who you are and how you want to prevent suicide, or what your mission about preventing suicide is from, just something about how you're connected to that. Several people, when you gave that suggestion, several people did it in one tweet. Phenomenal.
Yeah.
Please do that. That's my final thought. Bart, final thoughts.
This was amazing. Hannah, you are so incredible, and I want to give a major shout out to FSP because they brought somebody like you on board. They've trusted you and let you move the bar forward. I think they can let you push harder. I think because there's so much that you can do, but it's still a huge step forward. And thank you for being on the show and sharing your wisdom. We need more folks like you. We just need the cloner. Tony, get the cloner out. I know that we had some trouble with that in the past, but I think we worked out the kinks.
I think we're finally going to work this time. This time it's going to be good.
Tony, final thoughts.
Couldn't have been more fun. This was a great show and such exciting. I mean, you can see why Hannah does such a great job because her personality comes through into her work so vividly.
We're gonna wait.
Hannah and Chelsea to do a show. I think if
that'll be fun.
Chelsea and Katie Hardy on a show,
that'd be great.
So here's best tweet of the night. Are you ready for this? And this is Rachel Priest, who is a genius at the Twitter. Her tweet, final thoughts, suicide is a pervert. It touches everyone. SPSM.
That is like such an SPSM. Oh, that's such a genius.
That's SPSM gold, Rachel. Oh, my God.
Did we do Hannah or Tony final thoughts? Have we done?
I'll do my final thoughts now. I will retweet everyone's 10-second stories on the AFSP National page because tomorrow is the first day of National Suicide Prevention Week, but also Monday Motivation, which is going to be our theme for tomorrow. It's about what motivates you to prevent suicide. So I will retweet those videos and those little tweets. I will find them. I will do it.
Do your 10-second video on what motivates you to prevent suicide. Hannah and AFSP will retweet it, and we'll thunderclap the bejesus out of it.
Yeah.
How about that?
I'm going to have a big old case of the thunderclap when this is all over. I mean, is that the right way to say that?
I think so.
I'm not. I don't sure
think
have
so.
the lingo down. Do you get the thunderclap?
I think that's
Is
how
that
people
how-
say it.
Got it.
On that note, we've spent another hour with SPSM. We are kicking off National Suicide Prevention Week. Tomorrow, of course, is Labor Day. And please do be on the lookout for the SPSM hashtag and for the SPWK16 hashtag. There's also going to be hashtag VASPI. That's where the White House and the VA are going to be having a hackathon with a gorgeous data set. In celebration of Suicide Prevention Week with the goal of creating new science behind suicide prevention. And Hannah, one more time, tell people what they should do.
Go to afsp.org/NSPW and do all the things.
Do all
Yes.
the things.
Do all the things.
Everyone, bye.
Good night.